My relationship with the Mass Effect games is a little odd. Not one of the games is my favorite game of all time. They break into the top 20, however, the trilogy, and yes, it's a trilogy for me, is my favorite game series of all time. So, with this being the 10th annual N7 day, figures about time I give a review. Like most of my videos, this is going to be entertaining. Dedicated today, this is going to be entertaining and positive. However, I will not overlook the bad spots in the games. But I will approach this rather spoiler-free because I realize that there are a lot of people who still haven't played this great series. Fortunately for you, the whole series, at least on PC, is available very cheaply. You can get the, I just checked, and you can get the entire trilogy box set for PC on for around $12. And while I started playing the games on the Xbox 360, like most people, I beat the first game on that, and then my Xbox 360 red ring of death on me, and I didn't get another Xbox 360 until sometime in 2012. So yeah, so the series sat dormant for me until late 2010 when I picked up Mass Effect 2. So primarily I'll be reviewing the PC series. However, I will note where However, I have beaten the entire series also on the Xbox 360. So I will note where there are differences that I've noticed between the PC and console versions of the games. Also, I'll be giving my own personal ratings on which DLC I feel is absolutely needed, which is a maybe, and which is a miss inside each game's review. So let's get started with the first game, Mass Effect, the one that started it all. To begin with, if Mass Effect is probably the most dated of them, it is the oldest. However, for that reason, it's also my favorite in the series, not because it was the first one I played. I think for casual fans of the RPG or casual gamers, 2 is. I'll get into 2 and why I think that's the best for them. However, for someone like me who got my start in RPGs on stuff like this and Final Fantasy VIII, this, despite some of its data aspects, is what I love. BioWare had just come out of making the first Knights of the Old Republic game, and that had been a huge success for them. In fact, you'll see a lot of the same voice actors, at least the ones who aren't name actors, pop up in both the original in Mass Effect and Knights of the Old Republic. And they have a similar upgrade system and such, but Mass Effect went with a original IP. It's and it's very, and the story, I'm not going to try and give away too much of a plot, but your character, it's sort of a middle ground. If you're looking for something like Skyrim, this is the closest you're going to get with an open world. That's one of the things that I like about it, and with an upgrade system with tons of stuff. I mean, even once you max out at level 60 on this game, you are not going to come close to having enough upgrade points to upgrade everything. Everything has a ton of points, and you do that. And they help, and it goes along. The story is pretty much what you would get if you people have compared it to Star Wars, but I don't see a whole lot of Star Wars in it. Besides biotics, which is you're harnessing dark energy, the same thing that runs your ship, Mass Effect fields, which are things that run your ship and stuff. Using Element Zero, the same thing that powers your ship to harness dark energy to unleash attacks. There in some character classes, which there are a bunch of character classes. Be careful what you're looking at, which gives you all a unique thing. Your characters are it doesn't have much in common with that. Instead, it has a lot more in common with, especially the first game. It has a lot more in common with what you would get if you cross Stargate Atlantis, which I believe was in the middle of its run. Stargate Atlantis was just leaving the airwaves, or preparing to, at the time this came out. I know I watched it at the time. I just can't remember if it had actually ended at the time that I got Mass Effect which I got a few months after it came out. I just can't remember if it actually had ended by the point that Mass Effect came out. But whatever, Mass Effect was in development. But it's that and Babylon 5 combined. You've got a council of the most powerful races, making the laws for the galaxy on a space station. And then you've got lesser races who have a voice, but not as much of a voice as they would want, and they pretty much just count as suggestions. And you've got the free oldest races, and humanity as the relative newcomers, but because of their numbers and their influence, they're rapidly making progress. So yeah, that's definitely Babylon 5. Then you have the Spectres, who is what your character becomes. The intergalactic cops who can basically do anything. They're made. They come from any race, any of the council races, and there isn't a very specific training program for them, but when a single one shows up, people know that something is going down. So you had that. I mean, if you've ever seen Babylon 5, then you, like me, I was in the middle of working my way through Babylon 5 the first time on DVD while I was playing this. And the moment the moment you have your first conversation about who the Spectres are, I was in the middle of season 3 of Babylon 5, and I was like, okay, Spectres are Rangers. That's basically it. Only you have only you can have psychic powers. In fact, even the way biotics are hinted at being treated, I mean, there's mysterious past biotics. Biotics are created by being exposed to this stuff called Element Zero, and Caden, your main biotic, human biotic, talks about how human biotics didn't show up until a few decades ago, and he was exposed to, and there are shady dealings with them, with how children were exposed to Element Zero to make them biotics, and how quickly government guys and like dark suited government guys showed up and whisked them off to a special space station to be trained. And that's the Psi Corps right there. That's Babylon 5's Psi Corps right there, with its psychics. And you even have the detail of one of your closest one of the allies that humanity has right now. They, through a misunderstanding, they were recently in a war that both sides are still bitter about, because there was a misunderstanding on their first contact that led to a brief war that still leaves some scars, and has left some pro-humanity terrorist groups that want to get rid of aliens, or at least put humans on top and keep aliens out of human space. Again, anybody who's seen Babylon 5 knows that. Then you have the galaxy built on a cycle of destruction, which is partially Babylon 5, but it also has shades of Stargate Atlantis, the way it works. In fact, the default character name, if you choose your male character, is the same as the hero of Stargate Atlantis, John Shepard. And both of them show up on an alien planet just as a new cycle of harvesting starts. And both of them quickly meet a female alien who knows a lot more about these harvests than they do, and is basically their guide through this. And it turns out they both have special abilities that allow them to understand and operate some ancient alien technology left over from ancient aliens that built most of the tech that they stand on, or at least you think so in Mass Effect. But basically what you're given in the original Mass Effect, yeah, that's a cross. So that's as much of the story as I'm going to give away. The game's combat is very much borrowed from Gears of War. However, it's a very stilted version of Gears of War. It's a vast improvement over what you had in Knights of the Old Republic, but it still feels rough. It sometimes feels stiff, sometimes hard to hit what you want, and your squad mates aren't that much help unless you directly tell them what to do. It's still obvious that BioWare is coming from an RPG background here, and that can be seen in that certain sub-quests finish themselves with text, and once you get rid of all the enemies, you have to run all the way back outside. And there are problems with, and it does get a bit dull in that you have to run through the same modular buildings on planets over and over again, and run back through them once you eliminate all the enemies. So that starts making things look a bit samey. But to be fair, the universe does justify this. These are supposed to be, most of what you encounter are supposed to be remote outposts set up quickly, so it makes sense that they would just be some mass-produced buildings just dropped on this alien planet. Where this game succeeds, here's the thing, is Mass Effect going in, you're going to be disappointed if you're expecting something like Skyrim. However, it does have big worlds to explore, and your method of exploring them is controversial. I think this is mostly due to two things. One is that sometimes the physics are inconsistent. And you have like a tank-like vehicle called the Mako that you explore worlds with, and it sort of go and sometimes it can go up a sheer cliff, and then other times it can and then other times it just gets stuck and won't go, and it insists that a tiny little hill is too steep. So you're on your own trying to find out. And what's more, you can easily get lost on the alien planet if you don't use the map. So use the map. But it does feel bigger than all the other Mass Effect games, and the worlds feel big and alien, and there are hazards like cold, hot, atmosphere. So that just makes you feel like you're exploring. So exploration is controversial on that point. The next point where it gets controversial is something I didn't have much of a problem with, but on the PC version, but on the 360, yeah, it's a pain in the neck. Your vehicle, the Mako, on the consoles controls like garbage. It's all over the place. It feels unnatural. It's not even tank controls. I don't know what to classify the controls. I can only classify them as Mako controls. It's a good thing the thing takes a lot of punishment, and you can reduce unwanted items in your inventory because it will rapidly get killed. uh, Die on you if you don't repair it. And there are these pressure malls, basically they're sandworms from Doom. Will sometimes, if you don't know if you're going first time on an alien planet, the first time I went to an alien planet, one of them just jumped up and insta-killed me. That seemed like an unfair. But it just controls like garbage on the console. So I remembered hating those sections. However, I didn't have a problem with it. The first time I picked it up on the PC, I went in like, oh my gosh. But for some reason, what they got wrong for consoles with its controller feels completely solid on the PC. I never once felt like I was out of control, except when the physics of the landscape did something illogical to me. But on the PC, I have to say the Mako feels like one of the most solid vehicles I've ever driven in a game. I never once feel out of control with it. I just cruise around. Even going up against pressure malls, once you know where they are and what triggers them, you can easily shoot them and then get up into a mountain if you need to repair it, and where they can't hit you. And sometimes you can get up there and if you shoot them enough, they'll get mad and they'll keep trying to attack you while you're on the mountain, and you'll be just out of their acid spitting range, and you can just blow them away. So that works for me. One thing that doesn't work is just so old school. I felt like I was playing like one of the really old Ultima games or any old RPG, and again, this shows their roots, is too much inventory management. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the degree of control it gives you. You can customize every piece of you can customize the armor on your squad mates. You can customize all of their guns. Different classes use different guns. Every gun can have one or two upgrades, plus it can have an ammo power. The trouble is, there are multiple levels for each upgrade, and there are multiple levels for each gun. So that needs constant management. You only have 150 inventory slots, and those fill up quick. Now, you can reduce unwanted items to Omnigel, which is a thing that you use to break through locks and repair things like your vehicle. However, this adds at least 2 to 3 hours to the gameplay that doesn't need to be there. It's just like every time you get an upgrade of an item, and you need to upgrade it because the enemies get progressively harder, which is what I like to see. I like to see it getting harder, and I like to see, and one of the things I like about an RPG is that by the end of it, I feel like the actual master, and no game does this better. No game does a better job that I've ever encountered, does a better job of making you feel like you've become the ultimate space hero and the ultimate guy by the end, and you've learned how all this works. You've learned all the different enemy tactics, and makes you feel like, despite the fact that the odds are overwhelming, you're gonna go through them and you are going to win. You still feel like the odds are stacked against you and like you're going through, but you feel like, yeah, I can do this. No game captures that sort of Captain Kirk, Captain Sheridan sort of feel of taking on aliens with almost godlike powers compared to yours and winning, and the thrill of winning better than the Mass Effect series. So, and particularly this game, once you get fully upgraded and decked out, boy, and there is no way you will reach and there is if you do every single side quest, but there is no way you will reach level 60 on your first playthrough. So, which is your level cap. So doing a new game plus feels even better because those early aliens just sort of, even if you go in on a higher difficulty level, they just fall before you and your big armor and fully upgraded guns. The trouble is getting there. Once you get several files made where you've tried out different options and different classes, and you've tried out different appearances for either your male or female character, which I'll give BioWare credit. They did an excellent job just voicing a ton of stuff, which normally you don't see in this. Normally you see a lot of generic things, but people will change the tone of their responses and stuff, but to whichever you pick. But anyway, once you get a few options like that on this game, because there is so much inventory management, even I, with as much love as I have for this game, with it being my favorite in the series because it's the most like a traditional RPG, and I don't mind the inventory management or doing puzzles so much, even I tend to, now that I have like 7 or 8 characters that are already created, I tend to, if I want to start the trilogy over, I just import one of my new characters because they have everything decked out, and I have everything decked out for my squad mates automatically come with. My squad mates, I can just deck them out once instead of doing it instead of doing it dozens of times over, and I can shave about 3 hours off my gameplay time, and it's just so much frustration. So, yeah, inventory management is a big problem in this game. It's just is, and it'll bog you down, especially if you're not used to old school RPG. Now, so what makes this game worth playing? I mean, in some ways, it's not the most linear of the Mass Effect series, but what makes this game worth playing? I mean, I've just spent probably close to 20 minutes talking about negatives, or things that haven't aged well with this game. Well, pretty much everything else. First of all, BioWare did a great job with the voice cast, and they didn't get lazy just doing, even when something triggers the same, the Paragon Renegade system gets a lot of flack these days for making morality too simple, but it really doesn't. Sometimes you need a Renegade option, sometimes you need a Paragon option, and it makes things, and there's a level to complexity to it that is hidden unless you've played the games multiple times and you just are very observant of these sorts of story and character things, and I tend to be. I'm a classic film fan. To me, a TV show or a movie lives or dies by its characters, and a lot of times the moral question choices. And here's the thing: in real life, when we respond to something, later systems just give you gray areas, or you don't know if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. A lot of times in real life, we have a basic idea about whether or not what we're doing is right or wrong, or at least we think we do. And Mass Effect, as it plays out, it does show that sometimes there aren't any perfect solutions. Sometimes you can get yourself backed into a corner, like trying to save hostages, and a mission will go south and you'll say the wrong thing and you'll get them killed or something. So, and you thought it was the right thing to say. And there are situations where, even as somebody who prefers to play as Paragon, because I like playing this as the heroic Commander Shepard rising above his a bad situation he had in his past to be an inspirational figure who unites the galaxy through just what good deeds he does. And Batman Begins did a great job illustrating what a hero is, in that it did two things. It said that there were two lines that define is that is that Bruce Wayne said that as a man he could be destroyed, but as a symbol he could inspire the whole city. So that's why he donned Batman, and that's kind of how I like to play Shepard in this. And Rachel Dawes had the line, "It's not who you are underneath, it's what you do that defines you." So I like playing it with those two things because I like big heroic stories. In case that wasn't clear, I like big heroic stories. There are plenty of gritty things I like. I mean, if it goes with historical accuracy, like stuff like Deadwood or Rome or something, I'll take it. But when I go into a fantasy world, I'll tend to choose big, unless it's a really well done film or game or something. I tend to go for big and heroic. And Mass Effect does big and heroic and lets you feel like a hero better than any series ever made. So that's why it's for me. And there aren't that many sci-fi RPGs out there, really. So it's got that going for it. But anyway, as you go forward, Mass Effect, what it sacrifices in its scope, to me there are two types of RPG. There's the big open world RPG, which has this huge scope and tons of lore, tons of books you can read, and there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of characters you can talk to. But a lot of times there aren't a lot of different options of what you can say to them, and lots of times they don't have, well, standout personalities. I mean they have personalities. I'm not taking anything away from Bethesda or Skyrim or anything like that, and I'm not saying that you haven't found characters like that you like better than others, but I don't see a lot on the internet of people talking about, say, a Skyrim or a Fallout supporting character as being unique and saying, "Oh, that was totally this or that was totally." And I've been on plenty of gaming Facebook pages, gaming message boards, and all that, and it tends not to be a lot of discussions of, "Oh, I can tell you that this is totally something that character would do." Mass Effect does that better, and it starts with this game. You don't have as many squad mates as you would in later games, but what the squad mates that you do have are all really defined. They they are archetypes, but they all have interesting backgrounds. They all have interesting characterizations. Each of them have their own interesting things to say. They all have their own interesting side quests, although some of them are resolved through text, so that takes away a little bit from it. Again, showing BioWare's old school RPG roots, in that you'll get done with a quest or something and you'll get a long text box that just tells you what their reaction to it was. But you'll grow closer to them. You'll learn about them, and through these alien squad mates, you'll learn about their race. The fact that I still have debates, the fact that there's a mission where you have to choose which one of your crew to save, and there's no way to save them both. And I still have debates. I've still gotten into heated debates about which one is the best one to save, which one was the better person, and the fact that there's a character in this that I don't believe she's a racist, but I've gotten into heated arguments 10 years later with hardcore fans, and everybody makes good points, but the discussions will get so heated because the character is shown with such nuance that that it can lead one person to believe she's a racist and another to believe that she's just being security conscious on the ship. Just tells you how well drawn these characters are, and they draw you in. They draw you in. The story is a little derivative, but it comes together in a unique way. They draw you in, and the fact that there are options in the final boss battle, you can either fight the final boss twice, or the first time, or you can talk him down. How many games give you the option, if you've made the right conversational choices in the past, and you click on the right option and use the right and have the right instincts to talk an enemy down? That almost never happens. Yeah, there is just one ending and it doesn't change. And but you can also end up having to kill a member of your crew to keep the mission from going south. I mean, these things were mind-blowing at the time, and I think they have more impact on me than they do in other RPGs because I become so close to these characters. By the time you get to that, I don't really do that option much because I fight to keep that option, to keep from having to do that option, because I just care about this character. And that's the thing, is it's so character driven, you'll look past all the other stuff. The main story quest can be completed in probably 10 to 12 hours, but you're cheating yourself if you do it that way, because you're missing up on a lot of, not only are you missing up on a lot of upgrade opportunities, which are but also there are tons of little subquests all over the place, and yeah, a lot of them are like shooting things, but some of them are puzzle solving. Some of them, there's a good portion of puzzle solving, there's a good portion of exploration, and there are tons of different enemy types you encounter, and it just comes together in a great RPG package. It's a little unpolished, and if they did release a remaster of this, that polished out those problems, I would be the first to pick it up, and that would elevate this game's score. And the other thing I want to praise is the voice acting. Where they needed to, BioWare went with veteran, veteran, for lack of a better term, real actors who act in front of the camera, but where they knew to, they went with traditional voice actors. Traditional voice actors do not get enough credit, and BioWare's choice to go with traditional voice actors in a lot of these roles help it immensely, and it gives it the proper mix. And little things like a character's response might be the same words to if you choose Renegade or Paragon, but the tone of their voice, they didn't get lazy when it came to doing re-recordings. In a lot of RPGs, you'll get the exact same, if the words are the same, it'll be the exact same recording. But if you listen carefully, you could tell that the timbre of their voice changed a bit. And while it's not as expressive as it would be, the voice acting fills in some of the facial animation that BioWare hadn't had. BioWare nailed down a lot of it in this game, but what isn't is filled in by these excellent voice actors. And of course there are veterans. A lot of them veterans of science fiction. There are things like Armin Shimmerman from Deep Space Nine, to Keith David from everything, including Highlander. And it's just great, and it just sells the world even more. The world isn't the biggest you ever think, but every part of it feels alive and organic to it. And the space exploration is done the best in this game. you just tell your navigator where to go. It makes you feel the most like a captain. You tell your navigator where to go, he goes there, and you find stuff. You'll find a distress call or something. Uh, and it just works. That part of it just works. The combat, well, I had some criticism of it for being, a stiff Gears of War, for being a stiff version of Gears of War, and that's understandable since Gears of War hadn't been released at the time that they were working on this and putting the final touches on it. It does feel a little stiff, but it works. Once you get used to it, it works. On the PC version, things are assigned to a few too many buttons, and it takes some getting used to. So many buttons that you have to keep track of. But once you get used to it and ordering your squad, by the end of the game, it'll be second nature to you. And it all builds up to a terrific climax. Even though there's only one real outcome, it all builds up, and you really feel like you've done something. And there is and it just and you're marching off, and as you're marching off to your next adventure, you can't wait to see what that next adventure is. And there are some hard moral choices, but despite the Paragon and Renegade system, they don't turn out perfectly. Just choosing Paragon doesn't make everything turn out nice, and doesn't make you always come off as nice. Just choosing Renegade doesn't always make you doesn't make things always come out as bad, or you come out as mean. The system works. All it is just telling you what your character thinks the outcome of that choice will be. How it plays out isn't always what you would think necessarily it would be. So I'm a firm defender of the Paragon and Renegade system because it just gives you a basic idea, and it makes conversations go so much quicker. And this has the most natural conversation system of any RPG I've ever played. The only thing I'd change is that your conversations earn you Paragon and Renegade points, but you also have to spend them on you also have to spend your upgrade points on traditional charm and intimidate options, which feels antiquated. But for a first attempt to do a for a second attempt really to do a sci-fi RPG, and to do a shooter of this kind, and to mesh it with shooter and all this exploration, and to have all these moral choices and everything, it's incredible. It's really, really good. And okay, and so I don't really have much more to say about this game. However, I will give you I'll now give you my final score for Mass Effect. The original game is 8.5 out of 10. It would score higher if it didn't have some of the problems I mentioned earlier. And I really wish, I hate remasters of games from last gen, but if you're going to do them, please do this game and give us an improvement. You don't even have to improve the graphics. Just put all 3 Mass Effect games together and put them in a single package. In a single package with improved interface and inventory management on this game. The only must-own piece of DLC for this is Bring Down the Sky, which gives you a really hard moral choice, and it does affect later games, and it introduces the Batarians, which become a major plot point in later games. So yeah, the only problem is it's not officially available anymore. However, you can easily find it. The nice thing is when they took down the server for downloading it, BioWare and EA were nice enough, and yes, I did just say something nice about EA, to release Bring Down the Sky for free on the internet. So just do a search for it. You'll find an old download link. Download it. It just installs easily. like that. Bring Down the Sky is much stone. Pinnacle Station, I guess it's a maybe, but the Pinnacle Station DLC, I've never actually completed it. It's pretty much just a combat simulator and a bit of a mystery but it doesn't have much to it and I've never seen anything in it that affects the later games, whereas Bring Down the Sky does. So, yeah, that's my review of the first Mass Effect game.